Let me start it here. Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Underdog's Edge. And I'm so pleased to have you joining us here today. We have a special guest with Mr. Tony Salas from Houston, Texas. And I'm going to give an introduction to him just in a second. But if you are new to this podcast, my name is Blake. I am from Houston, Texas. And the reason and the intention of this podcast is to deliver valuable content that's going to help you in your confidence, career, and achievement. We want to give you actionable, practical, tangible content and value and steps to actually help you achieve better achievement and more success in those areas of life. And I'm so grateful to be able to bring this value to you. And we have a special guest today, Mr. Tony Salas. He's an awesome business person, entrepreneur, politician, community activist from Houston, Texas, more specifically Pasadena, Texas. If you're from Houston, you know exactly where that is. That's southwest, I believe, of Houston. But he has an awesome story. And today we're going to be going over shattering limiting beliefs. And but before we get into that, I want to introduce our guest, Mr. Tony.
Blake, it's an honor to be on your show, and it's an honor to be in the presence of your listeners. And if you're listening, number one, good morning. I hope you're having a great morning, obviously, or an afternoon if you're listening to this in the afternoon. And number two, in terms of my background, as Blake just mentioned, I just recently ran for state representative in the state of Texas. I received 44% of the votes, and it was truly an amazing experience. As far as business, I have a lot of different ventures that we do, but our main mission is to help Spanish speakers across the globe achieve their success through specialized education and access to work opportunities. And in order to do that, we have a series of portfolio companies that are based on supporting Spanish speakers in the U.S. and outside of the U.S.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And we're gonna dive into that mission more into this podcast because I'm super intrigued by it. I'm intrigued for a few different reasons because it's such a clear mission. And I think that's like 90% of success is just being, clear on exactly what you're trying to achieve. And so I think that's an awesome mission to be on. So Tony, let's jump right into it, man. I mean, look, this podcast, we're going to be going over limiting beliefs. And I know you and myself, we both are personal growth advocates. And we've been on this journey for a while, developing ourselves personally and professionally. And, for me, the biggest thing that I have seen with myself and with other people is having limiting beliefs and how it can truly hold you back from achieving what you want to achieve. And so I kind of want to open that door up and discussion up with you and see, what are some tactics and strategies that you've used to overcome some limiting beliefs in your life and in your journey?
Yeah, I think you brought up an excellent point. Limiting beliefs. I think for me personally, what is a limiting belief? I think anything that withholds you, stops you, or gets in your way of something that genetically you are capable of, then that is a limiting belief. So for example, if let's just say that I go to the park and I say, well, I want to walk 5 miles. You start walking 1 mile, 2 miles, maybe 3 miles, and you're like, damn, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Now, genetically speaking, we can probably run 10 miles walk 10 miles, right? So that in of itself is a limiting belief. If I have an idea in my head, well, I want to be able to be financially independent, work for myself, and I want to also be able to delegate responsibilities to other people. Well, some may believe, well, how am I going to do that? That takes a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. I don't know where to start. Those may be real problems, but if your mindset is like, well, there's no way that I can do this, I'm not there yet, then that in of itself is a limiting belief. So to answer your question, for me, number one, I had to get really clear on what my mission was and what my mission is. And my mission has changed over time, right? Because it depends on where you're at in your life. If you're a father or mother, your mission may be slightly different than if you're a single person.
Right.
If you're in school getting started, your mission is going to be a little different. But overall, who you are as a person is very clear. And when you get a clarity on what you want to achieve in this world, then I think that's the starting point. And for me, that has always been a starting point, is evaluating what do I want to become, and what do I need to do to get there.
That's huge, man. That's huge. I mean, I think most people don't even get to that point where they even ask those questions to themselves, and I think that in itself is a challenge, and you made a good point. Limiting beliefs and problems are two different things, right? And I think there's always going to be challenges that are practical. But what I have noticed in my life is, most of my challenges that I have faced have been me standing in my own way, and me not allowing myself to fully actualize my potential. And when I dive deeply, it's because I have some sort of limiting belief that holds you back. And challenges are always going to be there externally, but if you believe you can overcome it, it's more exciting than fearful, and I think that's a huge example, especially what you use with the walking, and how mentally we know we can do it, but we don't. As we start the process, we stop ourselves from actually fully doing the actions. um Going into some tactics, I know that was a good overview. What are some tactics? I know like I said, we're both personal growth advocates. What are some things that you can help people with, maybe on a tactical level, action steps oriented, that maybe might help people overcome some limiting beliefs, or just identifying what those beliefs are?
Sure. So let's start with the goal. Okay. Let's just say that since we're talking about business and career and overall, let's think of a goal as an income goal. I want to make X amount of money per month or per year. So what do you do, right? A person may have maybe in a salary-based job. They may be in an industry where no one makes that kind of money. They may not know anyone within their family or their friends or their network that makes that kind of money, and the only people that they think that make that kind of money is someone that went to an Ivy League school, maybe a CEO, maybe a YouTube influencer. But outside of those realms, it's very hard for them in their mind, right? So
Right.
number one is to start with the goal. Start with what is the outcome. And I'll give you an example. When I was a teenager, I grew up in my whole family, I grew up in a very entrepreneur family. So my mother had a daycare business and my father had a car wash business. And so at the age of 10, I learned the value of sweat equity. Sweat equity meaning hard work in Texas heat, sweating bullets, real sweat equity, right? Meaning
Yeah.
working hard. And when I got into high school, I sold tacos because I wanted to make money.
Right.
And I was earning about 150 to 200 a week. Not bad for a kid in high school.
No, that's good extra money right there.
When I left high school, I was trying to get a job. I remember at a soup place. I think they're still here. It's like Soup Mart, and they were paying like $8.50 to $9 an hour. And for a 17-year-old, I was like, well, that's, I guess, a start. Like I don't want to sell tacos for a living. So, I can see myself selling suits. So I kept applying and applying. They would not hire me. And I was frustrated. I was like, I know kids that are, let's just say, less less motivated than I am, and they were able to get the job. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? So that started a journey for personal development. And what I did is I purchased my first book. One of them is Harmonic Wealth. And there is some controversy with that book, with the gentleman. But outside of the controversy with that book with who wrote it, there's some really good things. And one of the things that I learned there was visualizing and starting to put seeing myself as the result already came real, right? So it's like visualizing whatever you want to happen. And I started creating goals. And I remember that I was 17, turning 18. And I said, I want to earn $80,000 a year and I want to buy a Corvette.
Okay.
Now, most people would be like, wow, like that's, first of all, you need to like slow down, maybe sign up for school and you know, take that path, right? Well, check this out. 1 year later, I earned $80,000 a year and I bought a Corvette. I was 19 years old. That Corvette was a relatively new one. It only was 2 years out in the market. And here I was like turning 19 after like a kid living his dream.
Yeah.
And so a real tactic that you can do is you have to visualize what you want and be grateful for it in advance. Now that is more like, you can call it a uh, motivational aspect, but that alone is not going to get you the result. The second step, once you know what you're looking for and you know that you can achieve it, and you can visualize it, you can see it, you can feel it, you know it is a real thing, it is a real target. Then number two, you have to get creative. There's a mathematical with earning money. If you
Right.
are in a salary-based job and your income is $35,000 and it's a fixed income, I mean, you can only visualize yourself into $100,000 or $200,000. It's not going to happen,
Right.
right? And then that's when the creativity comes in.
So when you say get creative, and you said, is it basically just analyzing your current situation and like creating opportunities that are going to allow you to get to your goal? Is that kind of what you're saying, or?
Yeah, it's like, so let's take the step back where if someone is earning a salary, let's just say it's $50,000 or $60,000, and they say that I want to earn 150,000. And so how are they going to do that? Well, one step is they can go and they can improve their education and they can apply for promotion.
Right.
That's one option.
Right.
Another option is they can look for a better paying job. That's one other option. Another option is they can specifically do research and say, well, with my experience or with what I have, what kind of career can earn this kind of money for me?
Right.
What's another option? They can start doing freelancing. We live in a gig economy. Everyone has a talent. Everyone has something to provide, whether it's doing nails, doing hairs, DJing, cutting lawns. There's just so many things that people can do, like dog sitting, consulting,
Right.
marketing. I mean, the list goes on. There's so many ways. And so if that same person has a salaried income, now they're taking something that they already know how to do. Maybe they're good cooks. Maybe they know how to make great cakes. I mean, you go on Instagram and you see side hustles that you can't even imagine. You're like, what?
Right.
Somebody does this?
Yeah. It's mind
Like,
blowing. Yeah.
like drones. Like drones are cool. Well, there's photographers that do drone footages. They charge $500 to $1,000 or more for one scene.
Right.
So you're telling me 1 or 2 hours of work making $500 to 1,000. You do 10 of those a week, man. You're gonna be killing it.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. So it sounds like what you're saying is, obviously with the first step, you want to start with the end goal, the outcome, and you want to be grateful for that in advance. So that sounds like more like an internal process. And then the second step is you want to get creative, basically just map out your possibilities that different roadmaps that might possibly help you get to the end goal. Is that basically the first two steps?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
And there's also some theory behind that. There's something called NLP, that's NeuroLinguistic Programming, which essentially is the science of how your brain works. And within that body of knowledge, there's a presupposition, and that presupposition is you're presupposing that this is true. And that presupposed truth is that the most flexible element will be the most dominant element. And so let me repeat that again. The
Okay.
most flexible element will be the most dominant element. And so what does that mean? Like in any given scenario, if there's, let's just say for people, if there's two people, the person that will be the most flexible will be the most dominant.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because if you're more flexible, you're more open to opportunities and ways to influence, to make things work. If you are not flexible, that means you're closed. And that means that your opportunities are less than if you were an open person. Now, it doesn't mean being a pushover. It doesn't mean being a yes man or yes
Right.
woman.
Right.
It means being flexible to
Right.
understanding that people work differently. And so when you apply this to your own personal goals, then you're becoming like water. You know where you want to go, and your mission is just to be flexible and open up possibilities.
I see. So, and that's a great point, because, there's that saying, the strongest survive, or whatnot. To me, I think it's the most adaptive survive.
Yes.
And that really is a phenomenal point you just made about flexibility really equals strength, and being flexible and being adaptive in an ever-changing world and economy is not only a good thing, but it's necessary. I mean, and it can be tough. But let me ask you. So that's a really cool point, especially with the NLP. It's the science of how the brain works. If someone's not familiar with NLP, um, that may seem a little maybe intimidating, if they're not familiar with NLP, like, oh my God, the science of how is, do I have to be a scientist to figure this out? Do I have to be, is it hard information to understand? How did you come across NLP, and what are the best ways to even maybe open that door? Because it sounds like it could be a good tool to help someone overcome limiting beliefs.
Yes. It really started in when I was a teenager. One of the other books that I read was about a stay-at-home mom, where that she had 3 kids and became a millionaire with an online business. And this was 13 to 15 years ago. And the internet was not like, people were making money on the internet, but it wasn't like today. So for
Right.
me, I was intrigued. I was like, wait, what? A stay-at-home mom with 3 kids became a millionaire
That's
selling online?
huge.
I'm like, what in the world? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't even I couldn't even comprehend it in my head, right? I couldn't picture it. And I remember when I was reading it that it's something around the NLP lines. And I read other books and I kept seeing that NLP, like, what is that? And I've taken courses. There's a gentleman here in Houston by the name of Victor Escalante. I've done some work with him too. He's a master practitioner. He's been doing it for 30 years. You can look him up, Victor Escalante. Just Google his name. And he has all kinds of courses.
Awesome. That's really cool, man. That's awesome. I mean, and like I said, there's so many different tools that can help people. And I was really curious. So I looked up the book Harmonic Wealth. This actually looks like something that I want to read. And
Yeah.
James Arthur Ray is the person that wrote the book. But I'm looking at some of the contents, the contents of the book, and this is really, really cool stuff here. I mean, just the the chapter titles are very intriguing. So this is really, really cool. How did you come across this book? What was there? Did someone give this to you? How did you come across this?
So there's a famous saying, there's a phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
100%. Absolutely. Yep.
And so just to repeat one more time, that there's some controversy with James Ray. He had some people that passed away in one of his is in-person seminars because they were in a sweat hut.
Okay.
But outside of that, I would say there's a lot of good things that are in his teaching, in his book. I'm not, telling people to go and follow his
Sure.
teachings. It's just a book that helped me when I got
Absolutely. Right. Right. Yeah. It's just a tool, right? And I think if you're on this path of personal growth, you can't really get attached to one tool because different tools, you're going to have multiple tools in your toolkit,
yeah.
and you gotta be able to extract the golden nuggets from each tool. And I'm like, for me, I may read a book and there might only be one or two sentences that really transform something inside me, right? And the
Yeah.
rest of the book might have been okay, but it wasn't really life changing. And I think that's the whole point: is you're not, you're not reading a book because necessarily of the author, but because of the valuable information. It might just be one or two nuggets in there that could change your perspective on something.
Yes.
So that's huge, man. That's huge. So going back to the steps, and because this is really, really awesome, is, first one, you start with the outcome. Second one, you want to get creative and map out the possibilities. Is there anything after that? What would be the next step for someone to do after that?
I think that the number 3 is you have to stick through it. If
Okay.
it's something that you really want to do. And we use money as an example, but it could be something else. It could be getting into a loving relationship. It could be improving your health. It can be wanting to write a book. Whatever your goal, whatever your outcome is, maybe you're in a family and you have a child that is not the best listener.
Right.
Like it's like a lot of times parents think their child are going to end up like them, and they're not. They're just completely different human beings. And maybe you have just a difficult child that you need to be more flexible with,
Right.
right? So the third step is staying committed and being consistent with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, so there's a quick recap, 3-step process, to really, I mean, not just overcoming limiting beliefs, but to just execute on your goals. And what Tony was saying is the first step is you want to start with the goal, start with the outcome, have it clearly defined. In that process, you want to be grateful for it in advance. And this is more of an internal process, inside, doing the inside work. And the second step, he was saying, is you want to get creative. So you want to map out different possibilities that are going to allow you to grow from where you are currently. And we use money as an example, but like he said, it can really be used in any sort of goal or any sort of outcome that you're wanting to achieve. And then the third step that Tony mentioned was you have to be 100% committed. You have to follow through and execute fully on those possibilities that you mapped out, because otherwise, without action and without execution, it's still in your head. It's still a theory, right? And so I think it's a very powerful 1, 2, 3-step process. I think for me, I work better when I have a step-by-step process. I think most people work better that way. And so I know there's that's a really valuable thing right there. So we definitely appreciate that process, Tony, going over that. And guys, if you just to recap a few nuggets here, like Tony was saying, the most flexible person or the most flexible element within ourselves is usually the most dominant. So if you're very adaptive and flexible, you're going to have more opportunities to be successful. And if you're naturally not a flexible person and you're more closed-minded, just be conscious of that and think of ways of how can I be more open-minded to achieving my potential and maximizing what I have to give to the world. Because there's a lot of possibilities out there once you open up your mind to those possibilities. So to kind of start wrapping this thing up, I want to really get into your mission, Tony, what you're working on achieving. I know you were on a powerful mission last year, running for, to be a public representative here in the state of Texas. And you had a lot of success with that. And now you're on a different mission. And going back to that, basically what it sounded like to me is your mission is to help Hispanic, the Hispanic population with their specialized education and giving them work opportunities. You want to kind of elaborate more on that and what you're doing to fully actualize that mission?
Yes, and so the reason that I chose this mission, and really I feel like this mission chose me, is that I grew up in like I said, an entrepreneurial family and first generation Latino, and when I ran for office, I noticed how many people in my community that were Spanish speakers that needed my help. And I think many times we forget the advantages that we already come with, or in other words, we forget our strengths. And so with my finance background, with my entrepreneurial background, with my political background, I could do anything that I want. But who needs me the most? Well, Spanish speakers need me the most, because when we compare from a market perspective, from a whole market perspective, Spanish speakers versus English speakers, the Spanish market is way behind, not just on education, but for information, from business, wealth. And it's just the market that I chose. But in general, I love all people. And I chose Spanish speakers because I speak Spanish and they need me the most. Now, in order to achieve this goal, I have a series of businesses. One of them is called High Impact English for Business. And what it is it's an ed tech company, an education tech business, and wherein we teach high performance English in a business setting to Spanish speakers. The program is 100% online and it delivers excellent results. It's a program that we are marketing all over the world, in Central America, in the US and Mexico. And why is because in all those countries, including the US, English is a high demand skill or language to learn. Specifically, we did this because we think that, well, we know that when a lot of people learn a language, they learn how to say hello, they wouldn't know how to say hi, but they don't know how to use it in a business setting, which most people learn another language because of income earning opportunities.
Right.
The second ed tech course that we have it's called Escuela de Negocios, which is an ed tech business that delivers business education to Spanish speakers. We teach them everything from how to do a business plan, how to do market research, how to get access to capital, how do you choose a business partner, how do you do your marketing, your public relations, how do you set up a good infrastructure to do your administration, which is like your taxes, your legal setup, all the things that people need. And when we created this course in Spanish, because there's not really many Spanish courses. If I go to my Instagram or Facebook and I put in business course, I'll see a lot of English stuff. I mean, it's flooded, but there's not much Spanish.
Absolutely.
Third part of our business is we have a group called VO360, and what it is it's a business process outsourcing, like something like that you do in the Philippines, and we do this in Central America. And so we can outsource any job that does not require a physical presence. Our staff is college educated, fully bilingual English and Spanish, talented, and they are very loyal staff. And so I connect US companies with international talent.
Gotcha. Wow.
And then the fourth part of my business is I have Salas Finance, which is a debt advisory practice. We work with companies between 10 million to 200 million in annual revenue. And what we do is we help them with asset-based lending, private debt, capital restructuring, investor relations. Essentially, we help them get more access to capital.
That's awesome, Tony. And I mean, I think your mission is powerful. It's clear, and I just know just from knowing you that you're gonna have just massive success with this. I'm super excited to kind of be able to witness this from the outside looking in, from the start of it, and then what it's going to look like, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So very grateful for that. Guys, my recording is about to stop here. So, Tony, I want to appreciate you for being on the show.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure interviewing you. We have a bunch of awesome golden nuggets I'm gonna put here on the description of the podcast. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it, guys. Episode number 2, how to shatter limiting beliefs.